In the bustling city of Utahi lived Tenny, a girl from a middle-class family. Tenny is what you can call a fat woman. That has been her name growing up. People hardly call her by her name. It has always been, "Hey, you fat girl," or "Fat girl, come here." She was always teased and bullied. Tenny didn't have a good childhood experience, as her mother, who was supposed to be her guide, made everything worse. She would always call Tenny fat at the slightest chance she got. Tenny hated going out with her because she would always find a way to remind her that she was fat. And nobody liked fat girls, she would always say. Tenny is the first daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Ernie. She was 5 years old when her mother gave birth to her baby sister. Unlike Tenny, her sister Kemi inherited their mother's beautiful body. Whenever Tenny refused to run errands, her mother would use it as an opportunity to remind her how her laziness contributed to her weight. The only solace Tenny found was in her father, who treated her with love and respect. He was the only person who called her by her actual name. Unfortunately, even at school, Tenny couldn't escape the torment. Her so-called friends would pour water on her, pour drinks on her, and create mocking songs using her name. However, Tenny found solace in her singing. Whenever she felt sad or was being bullied, she would sing to herself, finding comfort in the beauty of her voice. In her final year of high school, a new student joined their class to write the final exams with them. He couldn't help but notice how everyone laughed and called Tenny names. Determined to be her friend, he decided to stand up for her. One day, when Tenny was walking in the school garden, a group of girls pushed her and began pouring water on her head. As the water cascaded down her body, Tenny felt a mix of fear and humiliation. But just as one of them raised her hand to slap her, the new student named Ade intervened, preventing her from slapping her. They left Tenny and ran away. At that moment, Tenny realized she wasn't alone.
"Give me your hands,"
Ade said, gently, extending his hand towards Tenny. She was still on the ground, tears streaming down her face. The pain of their hatred was overwhelming, rendering her speechless. But Ade understood. With his help, she found the strength to stand. From that day forward, a beautiful friendship blossomed between Ade and Tenny. They became inseparable, studying together and sharing their dreams. Others couldn't help but wonder what had sparked this connection. Some even speculated that Tenny had cast a spell on Ade, for he was the only one who seemed genuinely interested in her. Tenny's newfound happiness radiated from within. She eagerly looked forward to each school day, her excitement contagious. Her mother, however, couldn't understand this transformation. When Kemi shared the story of the new student, her mother's words were harsh and hurtful. "No one likes fat girl," she said, dismissing Tenny's joy as mere illusion. Though Tenny longed to defend herself, she lacked the courage to confront her mother. Instead, she silently left, determined to prove her worth on her terms. As final exams approached, Tenny and Ade sat side by side, supporting each other through the papers. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day. When the time for prom arrived, Tenny patiently waited for Ade to ask her to be his date. But to her disappointment, he remained silent, hopeful that he had a surprise in store. Tenny held on to her anticipation until the very day of the prom. As she entered the hall, her heart sank. Everyone was sped up, dancing and laughing while she stood alone. Ade entered the room and she smiled and waved at him, hoping for a reciprocation, but he didn't acknowledge her presence. Confusion and sadness washed over Tenny. Had she misread their friendship? Was she just a fool to believe that someone like Ade could truly care for her? She couldn't help but question everything as she stood there, feeling utterly alone. Lost in her thoughts, she watched as the teacher crowned Ade as the prom king and asked him to invite his queen. Ade, with a smile on his face, graciously thanked everyone and then shocked Tenny by calling Tope to the stage as his queen and asking her to be his girlfriend. Immediately, Tope said yes, and everyone turned towards Tenny's direction, looking and laughing at her. She thought she would be his girlfriend. How can he date such a fat girl? She heard people saying. Someone from the crowd asked Ade, "What about Tenny?" Ade looked at Tenny and said,
How can I possibly date a fat girl? I was just passing the time with her.
The girl laughter that followed left Tenny in tears as she ran out of the hall. Tenny didn't show up in school to collect her results. She asked her father to help her pick them up and purge sickness. The following year, Tenny was admitted into the university. In university, she isolated herself, avoiding any social interaction. But when her department hosted a party, she reluctantly attended, determined to keep to herself. When she arrived, she immediately located the attendance register, signed her name, and then went outside to an empty spot to wait for the party to end. While she sat there, she began singing to herself, completely unaware when a guy approached her.
Why are you outside?
The guy asked, looking directly into her eyes.
You should come join us.
He suggested, taken aback that Femi was speaking to her. She was momentarily speechless. Are you talking to me? She stammered.
Yes. Why are you outside?
Femi persisted. I don't have any friends, she replied. Did you come alone? She asked.
Yes, I did. I heard you singing and I wanted to compliment you.
Femi, the school's rising artist and every girl's dream in the university, continued saying,
Some of you were born with talent.
What do you mean by that? Tenny asked. Well, I've always wanted to be a musician, but I can't. It's a dream that will never come true, she confessed.
Why is it a cancelled dream? Have you lost your voice?
Femi inquired. Not at all, she replied. No one would want to listen to someone like me. I'm just the fat girl to everyone. Upon hearing this, Femi realized he had a lot of work to do. He introduced himself, proposed they become friends, and after some hesitation, she accepted. They shook hands as a sign of their newfound friendship. As they chatted about music, they lost track of time. They exchanged phone numbers. Before heading home, the next morning, Femi sent her a message that read, You are beautiful just the way you are. Tears welled up in her eyes as she read the message. No one had ever told her she was beautiful before. She got ready for school, and when she entered the classroom, Femi sat down next to her and whispered, You are beautiful just the way you are. After their lectures that day, Femi approached Tenny and suggested they go to an empty classroom to practice some songs together. Initially hesitant, Tenny decided to give it a try and followed Femi. They spent their time practicing 3 songs and then went home. The following morning, Femi sent Tenny a message again saying, You are bold and talented. As she read the message again, tears of joy welled up in her eyes. It meant so much to her. When Tenny arrived at school that day, Femi asked if they could meet again after their lectures, and she agreed. Once they were in the classroom, Femi looked at her and said he wanted to teach her something important. Curious, Tenny asked what it was. Femi replied, I want you to say these words to yourself every morning when you wake up. Intrigued, Tenny asked what words he was referring to.
Every morning I want you to look into the mirror and say these following words to yourself. This is my body. I am beautiful just the way I am. I am bold and talented. I am courageous. I have the best body in the world. I carry peace and love.
Femi emphasized the importance of making this a daily practice and asked Tenny to promise him that she would say these words every day. Tenny agreed, promising to do so without hesitation. That day, Tenny went home, Feeling incredibly happy, she had found someone who genuinely cared for her and wanted the best for her. She couldn't help but daydream about Femi, but quickly reminded herself to stay grounded. The next morning, Tenny began saying those empowering words to herself, and she loved how they made her feel. After reciting them, she headed to school. However, Femi was not there when she arrived. She patiently waited, and finally he showed up. Tenny was bursting with excitement to share how she felt after practicing the words he had taught her, and Femi was equally eager to share some news with her. Femi insisted that she go first, and Tenny happily expressed how saying those words had positively impacted her. Femi encouraged her to continue the practice every day as it was making a difference in her life. Tenny inquired about the news, and Femi informed her that they would be presenting the song at the upcoming school festival. Will I be performing with you? Tenny asked.
Of course.
Femi replied.
It's your song and we are performing it together.
Okay, but I haven't done that before, Tenny admitted.
There's always a first time.
The festival was in 2 weeks, so they decided to practice more regularly.
Let's meet at the same spot every day after the lecture, okay?
Femi suggested. Okay, Tenny agreed, and they left. They met at the empty classroom for rehearsals as planned, and Tenny repeated affirmations to herself every morning. On the day of the festival, everyone was dressed up and ready. Femi and Tenny were backstage rehearsing when they were called to perform. Femi came out and took the mic, and Tenny came out too, but froze immediately when she saw Femi with the microphone. She couldn't move again. Femi kept urging her to come and take the mic so they could start the performance, but she just stood there. She started hearing different dialogues going on in her head. You are not enough. You are a fat girl. Nobody wants to hear you sing. Nobody likes you. Not even Femi. Overwhelmed by the negative thoughts, she couldn't bring herself to perform. Tears streamed down her face. Femi kept calling her, Tenny, 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 Tenny. And as Femi was about to move closer to her, she ran off the stage. Femi tried to stop her, but she kept running. Back home, Tenny cried. Haunted by Ade's hurtful words, Femi couldn't perform without her and left, leaving confusion in the air. The following day, Tenny was absent from school. Femi anxiously waited for her, but she never showed up. Unsure of her whereabouts, he eventually left without telling her about his trip. A whole week passed, and Tenny finally decided to return to school. She searched eagerly for Femi, but he was nowhere to be found. Days turned into weeks, and still there was no sign of him. One day, as Tenny gazed into the mirror, Femi's words echoed in her mind. She began reciting them, realizing their significance. From that moment on, she made a firm decision to stop feeling sorry for herself and to no longer let others define her reality. Tenny started immersing herself in YouTube videos on self-improvement and gaining confidence. In one particular video, she found a lady who shared her own story of self-love and body acceptance. Inspired, Tenny made this lady her role model and watched all her videos, learning the steps she took to achieve her goals. She even started going to the gym, reciting affirmations in front of the mirror every morning, and incorporating more fruits and vegetables into her diet. She also dedicated more time to practicing her singing. Gradually, she transformed into a completely different person from the girl who was once bullied and constantly belittled by her mother. The next few months witnessed a remarkable change in Tenny. She became bold and courageous. Ever since Tenny started attending school, she avoided returning home because she dreaded encountering her mother's hurtful comments about her weight. However, since embarking on her journey of self-improvement, she found herself visiting home more frequently. During one of her visits, her mother asked her to wash the dishes while her sister Kemi lounged and watched movies. Tenny refused, saying it was disrespectful for her to be washing the dishes while her younger sister watched movies. Enraged, her mother retorted, "Don't you realize I'm trying to help you? I'm trying to make you more likable. No one wants to be around a fat girl." Then he cut her off, asserting, "I don't need anyone's approval. I'm content with who I am." Her father, entering the scene, was pleased to hear Tenny's bold declaration. From that day on, her mother never mentioned her weight again. Tenny felt a sense of pride in standing up for herself. She never imagined she would have the courage to confront her mother. Now that she could stand up to her mother, she vowed to stand up to any bully. As she returned to school to prepare for her final exams, she noticed a flyer seeking performers for the post-exam party. Eager to showcase her talents and missing Femi, she applied. She began rehearsing diligently, knowing that performing solo on stage would be challenging. Despite the obstacles, she persisted in her gym routine, healthy eating habits, and daily affirmations. She was determined to shine at the party. The day of the party arrived, and the entire hall was filled with eager guests. Tenny, however, was feeling restless backstage. She kept reassuring herself that she would do well. Suddenly, the MC called her to come and perform, and without hesitation, she stepped forward and took hold of the microphone. Standing there, she gazed out at the crowd, but her voice failed her once again. She couldn't utter a single word. No matter how hard she tried, she simply stood frozen. Then from behind her, a voice began singing her song. It was Femi, and he said,
I believe in you, Tenny. You can do this.
As she turned to look, tears welled up in her eyes. Femi continued singing as he made his way closer to the stage. When he finally reached her, he planted a tender kiss on her lips. It was as if that kiss was what she needed, for she began singing alongside him. The crowd rose to their feet, giving them a thunderous standing ovation. They sang on, and soon enough, everyone was dancing to their music. After their incredible performance, Tenny was approached by some producers who had come to witness the show. They were impressed and offered her a contract, which she gladly signed. Femi was overjoyed for her success. Once she was done with the producers, she rushed into Femi's arms, embracing him tightly and showering him with a passionate kiss. She shared with him the story of her childhood trauma and its profound impact on her. She spoke of the relentless bullying and body shaming that shattered her self-esteem, and how Ade's actions on their prom night further wounded her. Femi was deeply moved by her words and sincerely apologized for his lack of awareness. He also expressed remorse for traveling without informing her. In that moment, they embraced each other tightly, finding solace in their love, and sealed it with tender kisses. And so, their story continues, filled with understanding, forgiveness, and endless affection. The end. The moral lesson for this story is, bullying is an incredibly harmful behavior that needs to be stopped. It's important to remember that being overweight is not a crime. And please, fat people are just as human as anyone else. We never truly know the impact our words can have on someone, so it's crucial to always choose kindness when interacting with others. Please, if you are bullying people, stop it. Stop bullying people. Stop calling fat people fat. They have their own names. Call them by their names. And if you are fat, please accept your body. Love yourself. There is nothing wrong with being fat. You are also a human being. If you have ever experienced or had any trauma about being bullied or fat or any trauma at all, I would really love to read it in the comment section. Let's strive to be compassionate and understanding towards one another. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, leave a comment about what you learned from this story. If you learned other things aside what I just said, please comment what you learned from this story and share with your family and friends. Let's end bullying, please. We need to end bullying. Bullying is not good. It has led so many people to committing suicide. It has also killed a lot of people, and it has also destroyed a lot of people's life. See you in my next video. Bye.